Okay, it's a little time for little men. And it was an exciting chapter. Let's see. I think we're talking about Dan here, weren't we? Yeah. You know, Mrs. Bear was saying, talking about how good he was doing. I'll go back and reread a little bit. Excellent. Get out of the way. Excellently, Dan, and I'm so pleased because I always thought you only needed a little help to make you a boy to be proud of. He looked up at her with a strange expression in his black eyes, an expression of mingled pride and love and sorrow which she could not understand then but remembered afterward. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed, but I do try, he said, shutting the book with no sign of pleasure in the page that he usually liked so much to read over and talk about. Are you sick, dear? Asked Mrs. Joe with her hand on his shoulder. My foot aches a little. I guess I'll go to bed. Good night, Mother, he added, and held the hand against his cheek a minute, then went away, looking as if he had said goodbye to something dear. Poor Dan, he takes Nat's disgrace to heart sadly. He is a strange boy. I wonder if I ever shall understand him thoroughly, said Mrs. Joe to herself as she thought over Dan's late improvement with real satisfaction, yet felt there was more in the lad than she had at first expected. She had at first suspected. One of the things which cut Nat most deeply was an act of Tommy's, for after his loss, Tommy had said to him kindly but firmly, I don't wish to hurt you, Nat, but you see I can't afford to lose my money, so I guess we won't be partners any longer. And with that, Tommy rubbed out the sign, T. Bangs and Company. Nat had been very proud of the company and had hunted eggs industriously, kept his accounts all straight, and had added a good sum to his income from the sale of his share of stock in trade. Oh, Tom, must you? He said, feeling that his good name was gone forever in the business world if this was done. I must, returned Tommy firmly. Emile says that when one man bezels, believe that's the word, it means to take money, embezzles, to take money and cut away with it, the property of a firm, the other one sues him or pitches into him somehow and won't have anything to do with him. Now you have bezzled my property. I shan't sue you, but I shan't pitch into you. But I must dissolve the partnership because I can't trust you and I don't wish to fail. I can't make you believe me, and you won't take my money, though I'd be thankful to give you all my dollars if you'd only say you don't think I took your money. Do let me hunt for you. I won't ask any wages, but do it for nothing. I know all the places, and I like it, pleaded Nat. But Tommy shook his head, and his jolly round face looked suspicious and hard, as he said shortly, Can't do it. Wish you didn't know the places. Mind you don't go hunting on the sly and speculating in my eggs. Poor Nat was so hurt that he could not get over it. He felt he had lost not only his partner and patron, but that he was bankrupt in honor and an outlaw from the business community. No one trusted his word, written or spoken, in spite of his efforts to redeem the past falsehood. The sign was down, the firm broken up, and he a ruined man. The barn, which was the boys' Wall Street, knew him no more. Cockletop and her sisters cackled for him in vain and really seemed to take his misfortune to heart, for eggs were fewer and some of the biddies retired in disgust to new nests, which Tommy could not find. They trust me, said Nat when he heard of it, and though the boys shouted at the idea, Nat found comfort in it. for when one is down in the world, the confidence of even a speckled hen is most consoling. Tommy took no new partner, however, for a distrust had entered in and poisoned the peace of his once confiding soul. Ned offered to join him, but he declined, saying with a sense of justice that did him honor, "It might turn out that Nat didn't take my money, and then we could be partners again. I don't think it will happen, but I'll give him a chance and keep the place open a little longer." Billy was the only person whom Bangs felt he could trust in his shop, and Billy was trained to hunt eggs and hand them over unbroken, being quite satisfied with an apple or sugar plum for wages. The morning after Dan's gloomy Sunday, Billy said to his employer as he displayed the results of a long hunt, "Only 2. It gets worse and worse. I never saw such provoking old hens," growled Tommy, thinking of the days when he often had 6 to rejoice over. "Well, put 'em in my hat and give me a new bit of chalk. I must mark 'em up anyway." Billy mounted a peck measure and looked into the top of the machine where Tommy kept his writing materials. "There's lots of money in here," said Billy. "No, there isn't. Catch me leaving my cash round again," returned Tommy. I see 'em. I see 'em. 1, 4, 8, $2, persisted Billy, who had not yet mastered the figures correctly. "What a jack you are!" And Tommy hopped up to get the chalk for himself, but nearly tumbled down again, for there actually were 4 bright quarters in a row with a bit of paper on them directed to Tom Bangs, that there might be no mistake. "Thunder turtles!" cried Tommy, and seizing them he dashed into the house, bawling wildly, "It's all right! I got my money! Where's Nat? He was soon found, and his surprise and pleasure was so genuine that few doubted his word when he denied all knowledge of the money. "How could I put it back when I didn't take it? Do believe me now and be good to me again," he said so imploringly that Emil slapped him on the back and declared he would, for one. "So will I, and I'm jolly glad it's not you, but who the dickens is it?" said Tommy, after shaking hands heartily with Nat. "Never mind, as long as it's found," said Dan, with his eyes fixed on Nat's happy face. "Well, I like that. I'm not gonna have my things hooked and then brought back like the juggling man's tricks," cried Tommy, looking at his money as if he suspected witchcraft. "We'll find him out somehow, though he was sly enough to print this so his writing wouldn't be known," said Franz, examining the paper. "Demi prints tip-top," put in Rob, who had not a very clear idea what the fuss was all about. "You may make believe it's him, not if you can't make me believe it's him, not if you talk till you're blue," said Tommy, and the others hooted at the mere idea, for the little deacon, as they called him, was above suspicion. Nat felt the difference in the way they spoke of Demi and himself, and would have given all he had, or ever hoped to have, to be so trusted, for he had learned how easy it is to lose the confidence of others, how very, very hard to win it back, and truth became to him a precious thing since he had suffered from neglecting it. Mr. Bear was very glad one step had been taken in the right direction, and waited hopefully for yet further revelations. They came sooner than he expected, and in a way that surprised and grieved him very much. As they sat at supper that night, a square parcel was handed to Mr. Bear from Mrs. Bates, a neighbor. A note accompanied the parcel, and while Mr. Bear read it, Demi pulled off the wrapper, exclaiming as he saw its contents, Why, it's the book Uncle Teddy gave Dan. The devil, broke from Dan, for he had not yet quite cured himself of swearing, though he tried very hard. So I bet you Dan sold that book and put the money back. Reckon? Mr. Bear looked up quickly at the sound. Dan tried to meet his eyes but could not. His own fell, and he sat biting his lips, getting redder and redder till he was the picture of shame. "What is it?" asked Mrs. Bear anxiously. "I should have preferred to talk about this in private, but Demi has spoilt that plan, so I may as well have it out now," said Mr. Bear, looking a little stern, as he always did when any meanness or deceit came up for judgment. "The note is from Mrs. Bates, and she says that her boy Jimmy told her he bought this book of Dan last Saturday. She saw that it was worth much more than $1, and thinking there was some mistake, has sent it to me. Did you sell it, Dan?" "Yes, sir," was the slow answer. "Why?" "Wanted money." "For what?" "To pay somebody." "To whom did you owe?" "Tommy." "Never borrowed a cent of me in his life," cried Tommy, looking scared, for he guessed what was coming now and felt that on the whole he would have preferred witchcraft, for he admired Dan immensely. "Perhaps he took it," cried Ned, who owed Dan a grudge for the ducking, and being a mortal boy liked to pay it off. "Oh, Dan," cried Nat, clasping his hands regardless of the bread and butter in them. "It's a hard thing to do, but I must have this settled, for I cannot have you watching each other like detectives, and the whole school disturbed in this way. Did you put that $1 in the barn this morning?" asked Mr. Bear. Dan looked him straight in the face and answered steadily, "Yes, I did." A murmur went round the table. Tommy dropped his mug with a crash. Daisy cried out, "I knew it wasn't Nat." Nan began to cry, and Mrs. Joe left the room looking so disappointed, sorry and ashamed that Dan could not bear it. He hid his face in his hands a moment, then threw up his head, squared his shoulders as if setting some load upon them, and said with the dogged look and half resolute, half reckless tone he had used when he first came, "I did it. Now you may do what you like to me, but I won't say another word about it." "Not even that you're sorry?" asked Mr. Bear, troubled by the change in him. "I ain't sorry. I'll forgive him without asking," said Tommy, feeling that it was harder somehow to see brave Dan disgraced than timid Nat. "Don't want to be forgiven," returned Dan gruffly. "Perhaps you will when you have thought about it quietly by yourself. I won't tell you now how surprised and disappointed I am, but by and by I will come up and talk to you in your room." "Won't make any difference," said Dan, trying to speak defiantly, but failing as he looked at Mr. Bear's sorrowful face, and taking his words for a dismissal, Dan left the room as if he found it impossible to stay. "I gotta have a little something to wet my whistle." Cold coffee. Cold coffee concoction. Let's see here. It would have done him good if he had stayed, for the boys talked the matter over with such sincere regret and pity and wonder. It might have touched and won him to ask pardon. No one was glad to find that it was he, not even Nat, for spite of all his faults, and they were many, everyone liked Dan now because under his rough exterior lay some of the manly virtues which we most admire and love. Mrs. Joe had been the chief prop as well as cultivator of Dan, and she took it sadly to heart that her last and most interesting boy had turned out so ill. The theft was bad, but the lying about it and allowing another to suffer so much from an unjust suspicion was worse, and most discouraging of all was the attempt to restore the money in an underhand way. You think he really took it? I don't. Let's see. Still more trying was the steady refusal to talk the matter, to ask pardon, or express any remorse. Days passed, and he went about his lessons and his work, silent, grim, and unrepentant. As if taking warning by their treatment of Nat, he asked no sympathy of anyone, rejected the advances of the boys, and spent his leisure hours roaming about the fields and woods, trying to find playmates in the birds and beasts, and succeeding better than most boys would have done because he knew and loved them so well. If this goes on much longer, I'm afraid he'll run away again, for he's too young to stand a life like this, said Mr. Bear, quite dejected at the failure of all his efforts. A little while ago, I should have been quite sure that nothing would tempt him away, but now I'm ready of anything, he is so changed, answered poor Mrs. Joe, who mourned over her boy and could not be comforted, because he shunned her more than anyone else, and only looked at her with the half-fierce, half-imploring eyes of a wild animal caught in a trap, which he tried to talk to him alone. Nat followed him around like a shadow, and Dan did not repulse him as rudely as he did others, but said, in his blunt way, "You are all right. Don't worry about me. I can stand it better than you did. But I won't like to have you all alone," Nat would say sorrowfully. "I like it," said Dan. "I like it," and Dan would tramp away, stifling a sigh sometimes, for he was lonely. Passing through the birch grove one day, he came up on several of the boys who were amusing themselves by climbing up the trees, and swinging down again as their tender elastic stems bent till their tops touched the ground. Ah! Dan paused a minute to watch the fun without offering to join in, and as he stood there, Jack took his turn. He had unfortunately chosen too large a tree, for when he swung off it only bent a little way and left him hanging at a dangerous height. "Go back, you can't do it," called Ned from below. Jack tried, but the twigs... I must stop here, y'all. I'm getting sleepy again. Might as well just stop. Okay. So we'll be on this chapter again tomorrow. I read myself to sleep. I know a lot of y'all say you listen to my stories till you go to sleep. Thank you so much for the watch time. It's still kind of teeter-tottering, so if y'all can keep letting some playlist run for me, that would be excellent. If you can share my channel, that would be great. I know I'm over 1K, but everybody wants to keep growing. Need to do that, so that would be helpful. And just whatever you can do, I sure do appreciate it. And you know I'm praying for you guys and praying for the day when I can send you more than, well, I send up prayers for you, but send you all. I gotta get on those stitch markers. I gotta get on that table that's messed up. I got chores. Been so busy marking videos and trying to get a few things done. Keep falling asleep. I just had my B12 yesterday. It sure hadn't kicked in. Love you lots. Mwah, for all you do. And you do a lot by being here and supporting me. And all the other things. Okay, love you bunches. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. And I got a squirrel here somewhere that Thais sent that I've run out of room. Oh, and he feels so good. Okay, love y'all. Hope to see you tomorrow. Live at 5. I think I already said that. Please keep Mare in your prayers, who suddenly lost her husband in a car accident the night before Thanksgiving. Also, please keep Teresa in your prayers. Thank you to those of you who've sent cards to her son. We were just messaging each other a while ago, and she won Cindy Moulter's giveaway. Yay! Cindy was the one I mentioned yesterday. Yeah, yesterday in my live, and she went from like, what I tell y'all, she had, I think 79 subscribers to 99 when I looked a little while ago, and she was very appreciative of that, and I think we owe that to the Squirrel Squad. Yay! And Miss Tracy came on earlier today, Miss Crochet Rocks, so I hope y'all got to see her. I'm out of here. Bye bye, love you.